Why are real estate investors always cash poor? I remember I had, 800 grand in the bank. But I know that I have 30 properties on the market and, they're going to sell and I'll make money, right? So it was never a problem until it was.
Number one thing we hear is I make money but feel broke. A lot of people are like running an accidental nonprofit. Like they are literally going out of business themselves and they should be, given money.
What's up, wealth builders? Today, we're going to talk about how you can put more cash in your pocket. Have you ever thought about, man, I'm making all this revenue, but I don't know where all the money's at? Well, there was a book written called Profit First that explained why that happens and how to start tracking your cash better, managing your money, and everything else. And this guy that I have today is actually the co-author of Profit First for real estate investors. I've got David Richter. What's up, man?
What's up, Brian? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you here, man. So, dude, why are real estate investors always cash poor? I always call them broke, which isn't probably the right term, but they're always cash poor.
Yeah, they are. I think, oh man, that's a loaded question right out of the gate. I think a lot of them have the mindset, the root issue is that more deals solves all the problems. That's what we were. Like I was part of a company where we were doing 25 deals a month, but spending 26 worth out the door. And that doesn't work very well. And so that's where we were in the same mindset. If we just do more deals, if we can scale ourselves out of this problem, I think that's one big mindset that a lot of people have. I think the other thing is they don't know how to manage the day-to-day cash. Like even if you're a flipper and you're only doing one, but then you do two and maybe three at a time, like they start to scale and even if they're just doing a few deals at a time, where's all that cash go? How are they going to get it to the right place? Like they can get over their skis real quick.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is even okay, in your guys' case, you weren't actually making money, right?
Right.
You do 25 deals, but you're spending, like you said, 26 deals worth of profit. So you're actually negative net profit. But I know a lot of real estate investors, myself included, who have been very high net profit, but there's no actual cash. And so now we're talking about balance sheet type deals where it's oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we made all this money, but I took all that money and now I put it back into marketing, into 4 more deals, and now I'm broke again.
Yeah. That's the number one thing we hear is I make money but feel broke.
Yep.
Where it's okay, where did all that money go? That's where having a good understanding of the balance sheet does come into play. That's why I like Profit First, because it's it's sneaky. It's more it's more about the balance sheet and cash flow, but it tells that story in a much simpler manner, where you're not always just okay, let me be finance 102 or 201 or whatever. And I've got to be this financial guru, understand the balance sheet, but I can understand where my cash is going because it's just very simple of where all the money's going. And yeah, a lot of people just don't know. They don't know how to read the balance sheet. They don't know the assets, liabilities, all that. I honestly don't blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's accountanese, right? It's a different language that the CPAs and the bookkeepers speak. So, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are never just taught that type of stuff.
Yeah, I had to learn it, obviously, running multiple businesses and things. And then I had a tax firm that I owned. And, it's I had to learn that just by default. But it's all really important. And I always kind of tell people the most important thing in a business is cash flow. Because you could be net profit amazing. And guess what? If you have no cash coming in, you have more cash going out. That's how you go out of business.
Yeah.
Right? Or you could be negative net profit, but if you have enough cash and, maybe you're the startup company that raised a bunch of money and stuff, you can be negative and get through it because you have enough cash, your burn rate and all those things. So I'm really excited to talk about all these things today because I know that it's a really big problem for real estate investors, but, it's a big problem for every business. I mean, I see this in the digital marketing space, direct response space. Any of my friends who have businesses, I mean, they're always struggling with cash management.
Yep.
So for those who don't know, what exactly is Profit First? They may have heard the term or anything. A lot of people don't even know it's a book or a system or anything.
Yeah. So I'll start with somewhere that a lot of people understand. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, books like that, they all say the same thing as Profit First, where it's pay yourself first. Some version of that. Or The Richest Man in Babylon, portion of all you have is yours to keep. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and put first things first. That's really what Profit First is about, but in a business. In a for-profit business, you have to make sure you actually have some profitability. And like you were saying, what he equates that to is cash in the bank. Like, do you actually have cash? Do you know where your cash is going? And are you making sure you can pay yourself first? So that's like the mindset behind it. Then what I like about Profit First that takes it a step further than those other books is that it gives a system. It's not just a mindset. It's like, here's how you can actually put profit first in your business and make sure that you have a profit. Like, you're very much a giver, and there's a lot of people that we work with or like entrepreneurs out there that like to give.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like running an accidental nonprofit. Like, they are literally going out of business themselves, and they should be, given money.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want to give, but they can't because they're either not profitable or they don't have the cash and the cash flow. And that's where it gives a simple system that an entrepreneur can really start to implement themselves without some highfalutin, like financial person in their life.
Right. So I remember reading it a long time ago, but I just kind of remember one of the premises and things I kind of didn't like, but I understand is that they basically make you open a bunch of bank accounts.
That's the system part.
Yeah.
That's the part that we get the most pushback on too. It's like, and that's just the one part. It's a one-time thing. What the principle behind it is, and whether you love Dave Ramsey or hate him, he's made it very popular in the personal finance space, is the envelope methodology, or that principle. You give every dollar a name. That's really what the whole principle is behind it, is that you open up different bank accounts and you're literally calling them like profit, owner's comp, taxes, operational expenses, and income. Like, those are the 5 fundamental accounts that every business, I believe, should have, where those are the first 5 to open up. So it doesn't matter if you have a real estate business or, like you were saying, other influencers, if you've got a coaching, a consulting company, whatever it might be, wherever you fall on the business spectrum, those 5 can at least give you an insight into where the cash is going for, like, what you make. That would be your income account, what you spend out of your operational expenses, and those other 3, profit, owner's comp, and then the taxes are what you get to keep. And what are you taking off the table first, or profit first, so that way you can see. Because let's be honest, Ryan, like, most entrepreneurs are not going to open up their QuickBooks account.
No.
Like, number one, they don't know their password, like,
I don't
to get
know
in.
mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I bet you that most people have an app on their phone for their bank, and they can open it up and say, where's my cash? And right now, they might have the big black hole bank account where all the money comes in and it goes out of that one account, and they're commingling their money, maybe even personal money, maybe their lender's funds and all this stuff, and they have no clarity into where their cash actually is in the bank and where it's going.
Yep.
And that's where, if you just separate that out just a little bit, like, you don't have to go crazy. You can just get that framework, that simple framework up front. You can at least have a better understanding as the entrepreneur where your money is and where it sits.
Yeah. And I would say that was me for sure.
Yeah.
And still maybe me even today.
Yeah.
So, but way better. But, I remember back in 2018 was when I really started to scale house flipping. So that's the first time I ever did over 100 deals. And, we're managing over 70 projects at once, and all the money's just in one account. And I just remember not realizing that I was commingling, because essentially, I had all these deals, and I would get money to go do renovations. I would get money to go buy deals. I'd get money, from profit. I'd get money, I'd pay expenses and overhead and mortgages and renovation. It's all coming out of the same account.
Yeah.
And to me, I never had like any systematic way of like, okay, how much cash do I actually need? It was just like, what feels good? And I remember at that time, I had, I don't know, like 800 grand in the bank. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, seems good. Like, we had, I say at 70 properties, but remember, probably already 30 or 40 of them were completed. So they had already been paid. A couple we had acquired, or maybe, I don't know, like 10 or 15 needed to be in construction or started. And then, maybe there's 20 that were under construction, and, that they each had different payment schedules or draws coming up or whatever, right? Yeah. So there's like all this complexity of all this. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I really don't know how much cash I need to like actually finish all these projects, manage the draws, pay staff, marketing, the mortgage payments every single month. Like, I don't know, but I know that I have 30 properties on the market, and, they're going to sell and I'll make money, right? So it was never a problem until it was.
Right.
And 2018 was the first market correction I ever experienced, and they raised rates at the end of 2018. In the winter, it made everything stop selling. So all this money that I was expecting to come in didn't come in. And then properties actually kind of like I had to take less on some properties. And then that compounded with some properties going over budget. So now I needed more money. And you could see how this could start to cycle and snowball. And so then for the first time ever, I had to come out of pocket to close a deal, on the sale because we owed more because it just was a negative deal. Yeah. And I had to, go close it and get the deal done. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so it didn't hit me until all that started happening at once. And then I remember like so vividly that week I had a renovation expense of $200,000. So I'm like, dang, dude, that was like the biggest week I've ever done in like 1 week of a renovation payment.
Oh, wow.
So I make, this $200,000 renovation payment. I'm like, dang, that sucked. I had like 800 and I have 6. The next week I have $200,000 again. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I have like 400 and these properties are still sitting. Like, what the heck is going on? I thought I was good. And then, that was when I got with my team. I'm like, guys, I need to know how much we owe on the rest of these. Because if we have another $200,000 due next week, we're going to be in trouble. And, I got all the numbers together. And it turns out, I owed more in renovation than I currently had in the bank. Because I had raised enough in renovation. Well, actually, I didn't even raise enough. I had thought I raised enough. But, when you have that many projects, if all of them go over budget by even $5,000, right. 5,000 times 70 properties is $350,000.
Yeah.
Like, so there's already a big hole there, right? Then you factor in holding costs are extended. You factor in you're not getting that money back that you thought. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand why this is happening to me. And so I had to go get lines of credit. I had to start wholesaling. I had to start doing anything I could to get the cash back. And obviously I got through it. It was super scary and difficult. And I've been through other cash crunches throughout the years with unexpected things and everything else. But I just wanted to share that story because the more deals you do, the more complex it gets and the harder it gets to manage cash.
Yeah, exactly. And if you start at a point where it doesn't get to that level, can you build good habits with your money at a smaller level? Yeah. And then when you get to the 70 properties, like now you've got good systems. So that way you see that months in advance, as soon as you get a loan. Because here's another account. Okay, we talked about those 5 fundamental accounts, but I would add one for the real estate world. Call it like OPM or rehab. Like make sure all your lender's funds go into a separate account, not to run the business, but actually
you can't use that on marketing.
Don't use it on marketing. Don't, anything operational, like nothing there, but for the actual rehabs, you can use it for OPM or rehab account, and then you can at least see this is how much I have left in lender's funds for the rehabs versus like how much do I need. Like that's an easy number usually to get is how many rehabs do I still have left, and like how much do I still need to do, and like do I have enough for at least that? Because then you can know over here in the rest of my money, am I going to be able to cover that and give myself kind of like a bridge loan if needs be? Or do I need to go raise more funds? Or did we go wildly over budget and we got to do some more wholesaling or whatnot? Yeah. So that way, a month, raise 2 months, 3, whatever. Exactly. Do whatever you need to. So it's like, that's why I tell people, like, if you think you can't do this right now because you're just getting into real estate or you're at one deal or you're at your first 10 deals, like you're at one of the best points to implement something like this, because if you can get habits when you're small, then you don't have to unlearn what you have learned, like like once you're 100 properties down the road. So wherever you are, now's a good time to start it.
Yeah, I'm with you on all that. And just to be fair and to be clear, so for all the real estate people listening, in my experience, I've now bought and sold over $100 million worth of properties.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, that's a lot of cash.
Lots of cash.
Cycling through, right? I've kind of realized the 2 points where people get into trouble are renovations, because they always go over budget. Just always.
Always.
I never meet people who are like, bro, it's like, dude, I'm consistently under budget. It's like they're always over. And then holding cost. Yeah. It's like we are consistently underestimating how long it's going to truly take to sell the property. And holding costs hurts you with the actual hold, but it hurts you with the profit you were expecting to get back to, continue to pour back into the business and cycle. The cash conversion cycle essentially is just so much longer than most people think.
Way longer.
Yeah.
We always recommend, do you have a short-term exit strategy ready to go? like wholesale. Like in your case, you could also wholesale deals and try and get cash in the door right away.
Yeah.
So that's where, like, if you have something like that, great that you're getting the cash in. But if you don't, like, that might be a skill to add onto your tool belt.
Oh,
because,
dude, I'm telling every flipper you should wholesale.
right.
It bailed me out back then,
Yeah.
and it bailed me out recently.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, if they don't have that skill, it's like you need to have that at least one. I'm very big on focus, because one of the reasons we were doing 25 deals a month, we had about 20 different exit strategies at that point. And I'm like, oh my God, and you have to have people for all the different exit strategies. It's like mini teams that you're growing for each of one of those. And that's where I like focus. But if you're going to do flipping or something that's a longer term, like you mentioned, the cash conversion cycle, if anything takes over like 60 days, can you have one that takes less than 60 days to get money in the door, whether it's the wholesale or wholetail or just some of those quicker ones that you can get the cash a little bit quicker?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So just know that real estate investors, it's like, it's not really the marketing that hurts most people. It's never like it's like a fixed cost. Like when you know what it's going to be, you're like, oh yeah, my marketing is 10 grand. Like I kind of know that. I know what my employee salaries are. It's like, we have an easy time understanding that. It's these variable expenses like renovation and how long it's going to take to sell this property that really, I think, get most people in trouble.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, right? And we're going to go into different strategies with profit first and how we can be more responsible with cash management and all that. But how did you get into this? I mean, right? You said you guys were doing 25 deals a month, but not making money,
right?
Which is crazy to believe, right?
Yeah.
But how?
So I started that company, or with that company, when I was like 21 or something. I was really young. That was where Gary Harper was working.
Yeah.
We were up there in Northwest Indiana. We scaled it from 5 deals a month to 25 deals a month. I was there for 5 years. And in my 5th year, I was in the finance seat. Like, I was kind of like a fractional CFO for the company at that point. Now, granted, I look like the bookkeeper CPA person, but I did not go to college for that. I went to college for teaching. I went to a private Christian college. Like, I did not have the background for finances, but
you look like a nerd, so it's all good.
I do, so it's all good.
Yeah.
That's where, though, I learned in that year how to read the profit and loss balance sheet. I just asked our CPA a ton of questions. And then that's when I learned, like, oh my gosh, like, we're doing a lot of deals, but we're spending more than what's coming in. Like, this is not good. So that's where it even opened my eyes, because I was a part of a big mastermind back then. Might have even met you and during that time period. And a lot of people there were in the same boat. Like, they're doing like all these deals and they're like, yes, from the stage. But then it's like, oh shoot, they're crying at the bar. Like next to us too.
Yeah.
And that's where it was like, okay, this isn't just us. So that opened my eyes. Needless to say, I don't have a great ending to that story. It kind of like blew apart and people went their separate ways. That's when Gary started his own business, and different things like that. And I moved across the country, worked with another investor, and I said, show me your books, because like, I don't care about anything else. Like, just, I need to know your numbers because they won't lie to me. And he opened his books and they were a mess. I'm like, here we go, all over again. Like, I just know this because most entrepreneurs don't have good numbers, good things, or good people on the financial side in place. Clean that up. He was in the same predicament. He's doing like 1 deal a month, but he's not spending more than that. He just doesn't know where his cash is. He poured a lot of his own cash into the flips and into the rentals, but he never knew where it was because he was only like 35% loan to value.
Yeah,
like,
he's just putting a ton of money in.
He put a ton of money of his own in there. His wife had a crazy high-paying W-2 job, so he was pouring a lot of money, like from their household budget into there. And so he was always like, why, I want to pay myself. I don't know where all the money's going. So like, just gave him clarity. Like, this is what's coming in. This is what's going out. This is what you get to keep. And that's where Simple CFO was born, because he told me right then, once we got it clear, he's like, this has changed my life. Like, I feel like now I can make a decision on what to do with my money and being able to make better decisions. And then from there, he like refinanced the properties because they were so underutilized there. And then it's funny because that was like at the end of 2019 and at the beginning of 2020, we all know what happened with COVID. And he's like calling me up. He's like, I'm so happy that I'm sitting on like hundreds of thousands of dollars of just free cash flow right now, because he invested in a lot of opportunities right then. That's when I knew I needed to help other people just get clarity. At that point, I hadn't even read Profit First and gotten to this level. I just knew that I could help people get at least the clarity to know where their money's going. But I got a call from a mentor, Gary Harper, it actually was. He said, you need to read Profit First. I hear you're starting this company to help on the financial side. So he's the one. So without him, I wouldn't even be sitting here today. So I read that book, one evening by Mike Michalowicz, took like 10 pages of notes and said, I'm going to put this into our company as one of the foundational pieces, because I felt like it spoke to me more as an entrepreneur than it did like any other financial book. So that's what got me to start Simple CFO. And honestly, it grew from there. It grew faster than I thought it would, but a lot of people just raised their hand and were like, yeah, we have no idea where our money's going. So that's how I got here.
So how long ago was that you started?
5.5 years.
5.5 years ago. You guys are helping over like 100 real estate investors.
On a recurring basis, and just work with a lot of people.
Yeah. So what is it you do when you first come in with somebody?
Yeah, we call it laying the financial foundation. We do 3 things with every company as a fractional CFO. Number 1, we make sure they have the right bookkeeper, system, process, and person in place.
Yep. So you are not doing bookkeeping. You are advising the bookkeeping.
We have a bookkeeping firm, like as only for our clients though, and only if they need it. Because if they come in and they have a good bookkeeper, but no one's managing them, we can still help them, but we're just now managing the bookkeeper for them. That's theirs. If they are like, hey, I don't like my bookkeeper, or it's on fire, like then we can come in and clean it up.
Got it. Okay.
So that's number 1. Number 2, we implement profit first, because there's actual implementation steps. We get them over the hump of like setting up the bank accounts. Yeah, they're like, oh my God.
So like, what are some of the steps of profit first, just so people know? Like the bank accounts, obviously.
The bank accounts is a big one. That's the first one. The other one that we do, and that you can find even in the book, is how to find what right now you're doing percentage-wise in your business. Like how much are you actually bringing in? Then where are you putting that money right now? Like percentage-wise, how much are you putting towards the operations of the business? Then how much are you actually keeping? So it's like,
what should the percentages kind of look like?
Right at the beginning, if you're a small business, because there's different targets depending on the size of your business. In the book, it weighs it heavily towards the entrepreneur. Like you should be keeping like anywhere from 65 to like 75%.
Yeah, you have no overhead.
There's no overhead. So you take some of that's for profit, some of that's to save for taxes, especially if you're not owning any properties and you don't have any employees or anything, like lots of write-offs. Then the rest of it is going towards the systems and the people. So 35% to 25% out the door there. But then those percentages change as you get bigger. More has to go to operational expenses and that, and the less goes to you percentage-wise, but you're making more in the business.
Yeah, so that's more overall.
Exactly. So that's another big part of profit first, like the actual system, is knowing where you stand today percentage-wise and telling you, like, here's the goal that you want to be at, and, like, how can we close that gap, and get you better with the cash flow management piece. So that's where profit first, the system and the mentality comes into play. And like keeping people accountable, because the other thing I hear is a lot of people start to set up profit first, like they set up the bank accounts, but then they don't do anything from there. Like they don't consistently move their money. They don't actually manage it. They're just like, yeah, I've implemented profit first. I've just not done anything with it. Third thing we do is a dashboard. So what you were talking about, like with the rehabs and stuff, we have a whole tab for like flippers that is just specifically like, how much do you have out on these flips? How much do you still need to spend on them? And like giving them a very clear, at any time they could pull it up to be like, okay, how much money do I still need? Do I have enough? That type of stuff on there, projections, forecasting, budgeting, the things that a GPS type person like us do, where the CPA and bookkeeper are usually rear view mirror. The CFO is more like a GPS. Where have you been? What's it telling us for now? And how do we get to where you want to go in the quickest way possible? That's what we do with the dashboard, and do recurring meetings with that. Keep it in front of them and proactive. So that's us laying the financial foundation with any company we work with.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So let's just talk about some of the things you've seen working with so many real estate investors.
Lots of stories.
Actually, before that, tell me about how you even got to writing the book.
Okay.
Because like you said, you read the book, it impacted you. You had already started your company. You're already working with investors. How do you start writing this book with, this guy who's already written something that everyone knows about?
So I got in with him because he's got a profit first professional. Like you can't sell profit first services without being a part of his network, the profit first group. So that's how I even knew to get connected there with him and with that group, because you've got to have the certification and you can't just do it out on your own.
So he certifies CFOs and stuff like that.
To go out there and implement profit first and through his company. And I was about, 10 months into it. One of the team members said, you should reach out to Mike and just see if he'd be open to it, because you've got the background of real estate, doing lots of deals, and now you've implemented it. And we were seeing success. People literally from in the hole and like in the red to now having like cash reserves and like actually loving their company. So now I had some of those. So I went to Mike with that and was like, I emailed him because I had his email address and just I shot my shot and said, hey, I have a real estate background. I love Profit First, and here's the success that we're seeing. Couldn't we meet? So we met, and he was like, I love it. You've got a great background. You've got the real estate, but you've also got the Profit First and the actual, testimonials and the people that you've worked with. So let's do it. And it actually wasn't co-authoring. I actually bought the intellectual property from him, Profit First for Real Estate Investing. So I own Profit First for Real Estate Investing and wrote the book with his writing partner. She had that's a whole nother thing. You wrote a book, like it's a whole nother world.
Yep.
Like than the entrepreneur world or the real estate investing world. So that was a whole new thing to me. So I'm really glad I had that and his writing partner helping me through that whole process. And then from there, it took about 18 months. Like I had a small daughter at that point. She was about 2 years old. So I would write like every morning from like 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then she would get up. I'd play with her for a couple hours. Like that was our time together. And then I would go to work, like virtual work, but I'd go into the office. Then from there, I'd write an hour in the evening. It took me 3 months to get the book out the door, 6 months of editing because this was my first book and the first draft sucked.
Yeah.
And so like getting that all together, and then like 9 months from there, getting the actual book marketed and setting up a lot of different things and podcasts and interviews.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's how it went.
Wow. So, and I assume obviously since you did author it and you licensed their IP and all those things, they had to approve like what's written, that it goes along with what Profit First is about and everything.
Yes. But I also bought the intellectual property from them, so I did retain that part of ownership. The only guidelines they gave me is you can't copy more than 10% of Mike's book, but I took like 0% of his book and just said, no, I've got the stories, I've got the knowledge, and I know how this applies to the real estate world. Because I even write specifically about some of the things you brought up today, like the rehabs and that type of thing. Or you've got like just $5,000 on each flip, if you go over, is going to kill you the bigger that you get, stuff like that. And just being able to point that out to let them know, I understand what you're going to go through. Like, so if you can start to get these habits in place now, as you grow and scale, you won't run into some of these issues.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about that, right? Like for somebody who is constantly going over budget, how do we fix that?
Well, first, this is where like someone like Gary would come into place or something. Like, what does your operational system look like for that? Like, why do you keep going over budget? I like asking good questions. So the first thing I'd be like, tell me about your process right now and like, why are you going over budget? But if you keep going over budget, guess what? We're going to add like 10% to every single flip that you do, that we just know that this is going to happen. So this new percentage is not now your base floor. That's just like making sure that you still process everything like normal, but we're always going to add like 10% cushion into what you get for the rehab. So if you have enough in your ARV, like to the loan to value ratio, can you get enough that it's even over your repair estimate?
Right.
So that way you can get enough up front. Because if you know you're always going over and you never have enough and then you have to float it yourself, that's how I would stave it off up front.
Yeah,
now,
or even just get a bigger draw available to you.
Bigger draws available, that type of thing. I would try and take care of the issue as far up front as possible.
Right.
But if I couldn't, that's where Profit First kicks in, because you've got the different accounts. You don't have this one big black hole account. You can have literally, do you need a rehab reserve? Like, so that way you could dip into that account. It's not touching any of the other ones, and we might have to dip into that one. That's your own reserve from the money and the profit that you've made, because you just know you're going to have to borrow money and like to bring it to be able to finish the closing. So it might be we have to build this as part of your cash flow management system.
Right. So that makes sense. So, rehab is one issue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about cash conversion cycles, because this is like such a big thing that even me in all my businesses now, I'm just like, okay, how can I get paid back quicker?
Yeah.
That's how you scale. It's like, man, the quicker I can get my money back, the more I can invest and spend and everything else. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is when you're flipping houses, which obviously I've done lots of them, the cash conversion's a lot longer than you think. I used to think that, dude, I'm going to flip this house in 3 or 4 months. And it's like, that's just not really the case now that I've done it for a long time. Yeah. It's like, there are definitely homes that we sell in 3 months. But in today's market and, beyond anything that's like a blazing hot market like COVID times and everything, I mean, it's like 6 months a lot of times, 7 months a lot of times. So what I started to realize was, man, I'm putting all this money up in marketing and, I'm investing at that time $50 to $100K a month in marketing. And, obviously I got sales team and overhead and staff. And it's like, man, okay, cool. We're locking up deals. We're buying deals. But guess what? I basically have to now float 50 to 100 grand a month for the next 6 to 7 months on just marketing. We're not even talking about the other things. And even if, let's just say I budgeted perfectly, I raised capital to buy the deals, and technically I had no money into the deal for myself, that's still, $500,000 until I finally start making money.
Yeah.
Versus, you wholesale, you could do the same thing, and it's like, all right, cool, we're going to get paid back in 60 days.
Right.
Whatever the number is. And so it's like, yeah, instead of fronting $500K, now I'm fronting $100K or $150K. And obviously I'm just using what my numbers were, but whether it's $5,000, $10,000 or $50,000, 10 is better than 50. So talk about the importance of cash conversion and why so many people end up surprised by it.
Yeah. First of all, if they don't know what cash conversion cycle is, it's like from the day you get it under contract, you're going to purchase it, to the day that you actually get money in the bank from the sale of the profit of it. So that's where, if you don't know what it is, that's what we're talking about here. But then
I would even add the day you spend the dollar.
Yeah, the day you spend the dollar.
Because it's cool, it's awesome that I got it under contract, but dude, I'm spending the dollar a month before on the marketing.
Oh, sure.
You know
Even
what I'm
from
saying?
The marketing. So you could do it all the way up front from there when the lead comes in, from that campaign. But this is where's your cash conversion cycle? How long is it really taking? Because for wholesale, it will be shorter. You're not having to do all the rehabs, the inspections, all the stuff, that takes, like you said, anywhere from 3 months to a year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to know what are your different exit strategies that you accomplish and what is that cash conversion cycle. That's why I'm so adamant about what we talked about before. Do you have some exit strategies that you can cut down that cash conversion cycle time, like wholesaling or wholetailing, where you might put lipstick on the pig, but put it on the retail market, and it might not take as much as a big, rehab. But knowing what you can do, there's also some other people that do the exit strategy of turnkey, where they might sell it up front wholesale to an end buyer, but then they still do the rehab and get paid for the rehab. And then they put a tenant in there, but now they've sold it to an end buyer. So it's their tenant and toilet, but you're just managing it. But you've got paid out on the wholesale, and then you do the rehab and you get paid out on the rehab because then you're putting your profit margin into that. Then you might be property managing it. So you could roll 3 into 1.
Yeah.
It's can you do the trifecta and you're not owning anything, but you're managing. So there's
turnkey's a great model.
They're doing different types of things in order to cut down on that time. I would also say too, how much runway you have in the bank also lets you dictate the bigger the risk that you can take.
Right.
So it's can I take down this mammoth deal? You've got an elephant in front of you. It might be a year-long rehab, but it's going to be a 7-figure deal or whatever.
Yeah.
But do you have a good runway where if that deal didn't close for a year and a half,
are you still okay?
Is it
going to hurt the business?
Exactly. And then are you building the cash reserve even for that property while you're doing that? If you have a system to bring the cash from the other deals and then you're allocating it and where it's going and you have that mammoth deal, it's are you building it on the back end too? So it's very important to know your cash conversion cycles and have shorter lengths, and shorter exit strategies. But then, like I say, always on the back end too. Always be protecting yourself on the other side. I dedicate a whole chapter of my book to this, why you should hold reserves, as a real estate investor, because there's so many of the benefits, not just psychological safety, but you'll be able to get more from lenders usually if you have a reserve.
I agree with that 100%. Hard money lenders want to see your reserves.
Yep.
But also, let me add this.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, right, they are starting from maybe not a lot of money, or they find themselves in a situation with not a lot of money. What I find, and this is why I think the profit first system's good, is when you have money in the bank, you just use it.
Right.
This is what people do. They're like, oh, well, and I think that's one of why Ramsey's things is good, because it's literally envelopes and you just
simple.
Can't really touch it, right? But okay, if I'm a real estate investor, let's say I'm feeling good. I got $100,000 in the bank, and so you're like, oh, bro, things are good, and then you get presented this deal, and you're like, oh, well, sweet. Yeah, I got the money to buy it. Let's do it. And so you buy it, and now you're at 50. And then you know what? You get presented another deal, and you're like, well, dude, this deal's going to make a lot of money. It's only going to take a few months, and then boom, you're at 20. It goes like that.
It does.
And all of a sudden now, The deals aren't selling the way you thought they were going to sell. Now you're stressed out, and it could have been completely avoided, because what should have happened was there should have been this reserve account that had the 100, and that account should have never been touched. Or maybe it has 50 or whatever the number is, right? And it's like, hey, this is my reserves. I never touched this. And you know what? It's okay. If I miss out on a deal, I can live with that. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm never going to touch that. But if I'm a good investor, I'll find a way to get the money to do the deal without it, right? I'll go raise the capital right now and not touch my 50, not touch my 100, and just make sure I go get the capital to go do this deal. Or I'll wholesale it, or I'll do any of these number of things, but I cannot touch my reserves. That's investors' biggest problem, I think.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And you just described our best client. Like right there is the client that understands or makes a mental shift. I've talked to so many investors one-on-one where they're like, I want to pursue this deal, and like I put all my money out there.
Yep.
And I'm like, hold on there. Why did you not get lenders funds or something? Well,
why
it's
did you raise money?
Exactly. It's too much, or they wanted too much in interest. And I'm like, would you rather sleep at night, or would you rather have your cash in the bank? You know, and like, because that's what it sounds like. You're coming to me with the stress of like not having cash in the bank, but you're taking down these deals all the time and not saying no to any of them. And I get it. If they're great deals and you want to take them down, great. But does it always have to be your cash? Do you have to think this way? So many light bulbs at that moment with different people. Just like, oh yeah, I should probably think. It's like, yes, be a CEO and think about what do you really need in order to build a business, not just do the real estate deal. Let's be honest, Ryan. A lot of people in the real estate world think that they're playing the real estate game, but they're not. You mentioned all those other different types of businesses too. We're all playing the same game as entrepreneurs. We're playing the money game. Yeah. We've just never been taught the money game of like how to play it, how to set it up, and how to play it to win. And like they're good at real estate, so they'll get the real estate and they'll get the deal if they have to use their own money, but they're not just thinking about how do I build the business while I'm doing the deals.
Yeah. Yep. It's something that it's funny. I call it my sleep good at night account.
There you go.
So, I mean, technically, it's a reserve account. And so I should have a better answer to this, but people are like, how much should you have in it? And I was like, I don't know, whatever I feel good about.
That's not a bad answer, honestly.
Is it?
Well,
okay.
You know why?
What?
Because most people won't do anything. I would rather you do something that makes you feel good, that gives you enough breathing space and thinking space to think you're taken care of and go out there and do the deals you need to do.
Yeah.
As long as it's a reserve, as long as it's not the black hole bank account where you've got $800,000 and it's not really a reserve.
Right.
Like that's different. But if you've got a totally separate one that's good and you say, no, I feel good about this, whether that's 2 months reserve, 1 month, 3 months, like we suggest at least 3 to 6 months of reserves in all of your accounts. I'm not saying you have to have one reserve account with just 6 months. Like if you have the profit first system and you've got 6 different bank accounts, like some of those can just add up to 3 to 6 months. So that way you've got that full reserve. So that's what we tell people. But, like the big billion-dollar companies like Microsoft, when they first started, within their first 5 years, Bill Gates said there's going to be a rule. We're going to have 12 months cash reserve no matter what. If we didn't collect another dollar in sales, we're going to have 12 months no matter what. And he's still around. It's like what made the giants that are still giants great? It's usually they knew how to manage the cash and make sure that they could actually hold on to the cash, and they had some type of reserve system like that.
Yeah, I was actually just telling all of our students out right now. We got the mastermind going on while we're doing this, and you're speaking there. But I was talking to them about, the best entrepreneurs and CEOs are really good resource allocators.
Yeah, they are.
And resource allocation is so important because, the different resources that we have to manage are money, clearly, right? Our time, what we're doing each minute. And we were talking before this. I was like, man, I've done some like pretty important things today. Like I've been like doing this, this, and this, and this. Like, okay, that's pretty like I'm looking at myself because I always analyze, am I wasting time? Am I being productive? Whatever. Right. So it's like, okay, how do I manage my own time? And then also too, I have employees. So how do I manage their time?
Yeah.
Do I have everyone working on the best possible things?
Yeah.
So I'll always ask, not every day, but like at least once a quarter, I'll kind of like look at everybody in the company and I'll be like, man, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Just tell me about what's this person's day-to-day look like. And if I can't find like a good reason why, it's like, hey, like we're going to have to either change your role, change your comp, change something because like you're not being productive.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are all just parts of resource allocation. And, money is just one aspect of this.
Yeah, exactly. And you're a man of faith. It's stewardship.
Yeah.
It's like making sure that you're being a good steward of the resources you've been given, and to whom much is given, much is required. So it's like being able to do that with your time, your money, like with the people that you manage as well too. And you're pouring into them and making sure that they're as successful as possible. But if someone's on the team just because they're your Uncle Joe and you like them, but they're not productive, like, okay, that's when it gets a little bit hairy.
Yeah.
We got to do something with that. But it's the same for all those resources. I love the statement. It's like, you hear cash is king. It's not really king. I don't even think cash flow is king. I think cash flow management. And what you're talking about here, it's like where you put your dollars and where you make sure that you know that they're in the right place, doing the right thing. Same thing with your own time and same thing with the people on your team.
Yeah. So what do you think about, this is a debatable topic, and so
Good.
I'm sure
Throw it at me.
I have a very strong opinion, but I am curious to hear the finance side of it. So let's say you got a rental property, all right? Lots of people have this going on right now, or a personal house.
Yeah.
All right. Something that's not really like making you income today, right? Your personal house, obviously you live in it, but don't make you income. And then a rental, let's just say, I don't know, it's producing a couple $100 a month, but you have a ton of equity, right? Let's say you got hundreds of thousands of equity, and you're in a position where maybe you're not in the best position. Like, you don't have the reserves that we're talking about having, and you're not sleeping good at night. What do you do?
What do I do in that situation?
Yeah. Do you guys ever talk about these things?
Well, with our clients, yes.
Yeah.
And if they present this to us, we have to ask them questions. I need to know who you are. Like, you told me right now that you don't care really how much you have in the bank as long as it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a big tell for you of like, okay, it doesn't need to be 3 to 6 months or a year. It needs to be like, what's Ryan's magic number?
Yeah.
And like, does that change? And so like, I need to check in with you regularly to make sure, how are you feeling with this number? What do you want to keep it at? Like, what is that? It makes you feel good inside. Same thing with this question. Like for me, okay, let's just say with me, what would I do in this situation? I'm more, even though I started a company, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm still more risk adverse than a lot of other people. I run a fractional CFO company, for goodness sake, so it's like, for me, I would want to have reserves in the bank. I can't eat equity. And I can't pull equity usually like that.
Nope.
So either I need to judge, do I need to sell the rental and cash in and take the tax hit, or do I want to refinance and take out some of the equity and not take the tax hit and spend more money? And like, where am I right now in my life? Like, would that be a bigger tax bracket and not, like, is there still the capital gains, tax depending on like everything that's going on? It's like making sure, where am I at that point? So for me, I love cash in the bank. Even more than equity and all that stuff. So I'd want to pull the money either by selling the property or like pulling the equity out in order to have cash to be able to sit on. Because cash to me is not just safety. It's the ability to pounce on opportunity.
Yep.
And if it's tied up in equity, I can't pounce on opportunities as fast as if it's all tied up in a property. So saying that, though, I'm not against you holding properties and having lots of equity and building a great portfolio and even paying that down if that's what you want as an investor. But I'm like, I like having liquidity. That to me is a lot. To me, liquidity is opportunity.
I love how you said that. So let me kind of give my take on all this after going through the highs and lows and everything. So I agree. Liquidity is king. If you don't have liquidity, you have less options and you don't sleep as good, right? I used to be a big hater of the stock market and things like that. And I'm like, bro, like I get a way better return with real estate and all these things, right? Tax advantages, all this stuff. But when you go through a liquidity crunch and you need to get cash fast, you realize the downside of real estate.
Yeah.
You can't sell real estate quick.
Nope.
It is hard to get loans against it quick in a lot of cases. And you got a debt against it in most cases, right?
Yep.
Like I as I keep going, I find myself realizing why Ramsey says what he says and why people like stocks and everything. And it's like, I understand, like, yeah, you know what? If I had all this cash and I put it into stocks, is the return less than if I was to flip or lend or whatever? Probably. But the liquidity is there.
Yeah.
And it's very quick, instant, in a pinch. And I'm not saying that stocks are better by any means. I'm just saying I now kind of understand the value proposition that both people look at.
Yeah.
I also now understand that everyone's situation is different.
Right.
So if you are in a spot where you're brand new, just getting started, you don't have money, right? But you got this. Basically, I would say if like all your net worth is tied up in a property or something, you should sell it.
Right.
I'm like 100% on that. There's almost no situation as an entrepreneur where if you have like almost no money, yet you have this property that has a ton of equity, it's just like almost 10 out of 10 times you're better off selling it, in my opinion. Because man, you'll sleep better, you'll have cash, especially if it's a personal residence, you're probably not even going to pay any tax. So that's not even a consideration. Because for those who don't know, if you're married, you can get your first $500K tax free if you've lived there for 2 years. So in a lot of cases, people who have personal home wealth don't even have to consider taxes. In fact, it's actually better you sell because it's like the one time you could get $500K tax free. I've been doing that for the last 10 years, by the way. So, you know, I look at that and then, you know, I'll see people who are like, Ryan, well, I got this 3% mortgage and, you know, I'll never see this again. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? If you don't sell it, what are you going to do?
Right.
How are you going to scale the business?
Yeah.
Right? What's the point of the 3% mortgage? It's just a thing that makes you money. You going to make more money with 200 grand of cash or being broke and having a rental? And I'm like, to me, it's just not even a debate.
Yeah.
Like sell it and get your seed funding to go grow whatever you're trying to grow.
And I love that you're talking about this. We're definitely kindred spirits on this because we just talked about stewardship. And so many people are so worried about that return. They always say the word return, right? You even said the stock market, but over here in real estate, I get the better return. But they forget that we're humans. Like, what's the return on time and what's the return on your well-being?
Yeah.
And like your energy and what you're putting out. And like, if you had more money in the bank, would you be able to think about the higher level things in your business and where to allocate those resources, like you said, versus like it's tied up there and I have some, but I'm just going to go struggle a little bit more. And then you never get out of that. That's where I meet entrepreneurs that are literally decades into the business. And they're like, I never have felt like I've gotten ahead. Yet they have a bunch of properties.
I know.
Or they've done hundreds of deals.
I tell them that all the time. I'm like, bro, sell it.
Oh, right. Like, just sell everything. But that's where they don't understand that they're needing to build the actual asset of either cash in the bank or like that they have that feeling.
Mental well-being.
Right.
I've actually said this before too with a personal residence. I was like, let me give you two hypothetical scenarios, right? Scenario one, you pay market value. You live in the neighborhood you want to live in, the house you want, the school you want, your kids are happy, your wife's happy, all that stuff.
That's huge.
Yeah. And I go, or you get a deal in a place you don't want to be. Your wife's not happy, right? But it's a deal.
Yeah.
Bro, ain't no way I'm buying that house.
Right.
I'm gonna, like, this is infinitely worth more.
Yeah.
Right? Because you got to put a tangible value on your mental health, your family, your all those things.
Yeah. And I can have a personal testimony there. Like when I first got started, I was very much that investor and just human of like, I need everything to be the best deal.
Yeah.
I need to get the best return. I don't, like I need all of that. And I was actually more risky, I feel like even younger, and would go out there. And like our first house was like a house in like Hammond, Indiana, like right on the border of Gary, Indiana. So
Dude,
it's like,
I played baseball in Gary, Indiana. The Rail Cats.
There you go.
Dude, they don't even let you walk out the stadium.
Right? Exactly.
They're like, when you leave here, immediately go on the bus. Don't even look anywhere.
Don't make eye contact.
Just walk on, and the bus is literally like 10 feet away.
Yep.
And I'm like, is it really like that down here?
Yep.
They're like, it's like that.
It's like that. And that's where like, it was the area that we were in was like maybe 2 steps above that. So you could walk outside and not have to, worry about a bunch of stuff. But now today, it's totally flip-flopped. Like I would never buy in an area like that again, at least to put my wife, to put my daughter in, like to make sure that they're taken care of. We're going through the house buying process right now as an entrepreneur. It sucks, but it's like, I know that this is going to create more just peace at our our home and in our house. And I'm like you said, nothing can take that away. Where if I could find a deal, because we were looking at several, and my wife is actually, she knows like the exit strategies. She looked at this rent to own, and we walked in there, and she's like, oh, it's going to need a lot of work. I'm like, is this what you want to do? Like, do you want to do some work like this, or would you rather, like, there's a couple hours. She's like, I'm like, let's go for this then. Like, let's go for the flipped and the retail one over here. And like, we don't have to worry about this at this point. Like, I don't, and in our early marriage, maybe like we had to, and we had to scrounge and we had to do that. But like now, once you get a little bit more established, especially as a real estate investor, have you played the Cash Flow 101 game by Robert Kiyosaki?
No,
like,
I mean, I've seen pictures of it,
and
but I never
people,
played
if you've never played it, there's two portions to the game. There's the rat race circle you're in, and then there's the fun track, financial freedom outside. And it's like there's so many investors that stay stuck in that rat race
even though they're millionaires.
They're millionaires. They've done hundreds of deals, like we were talking about, because they've never made the mental switch to, you know what, I actually could go to the financial freedom track.
Yeah.
But like they're keeping themselves locked in there, and that's where you got to make that leap at some point and like do something that doesn't make sense on paper, but it makes sense in here. And in here, like with what you've got going on for your life and what makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I just think people need to look at their emotional and personal and all that stuff. And cash in the bank is probably the biggest role, and where you live is another big role. And I never heard anyone that went to sleep at night knowing they got freaking rentals and like, well, I guess maybe I do hear people in that, but like, you know, one rental, right? Like, you know, if you have 100 or whatever, but even then, man, like I've thought about this too. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just say you did buy 100 rentals and you have now, you know, how much debt is that, right? Let's say the average rental you had is 300,000, right? So it's like, okay, you have $30 million of debt. It cash flows, but man, I mean, like it's still debt.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying it's wrong because real estate investors want to get more debt and get depreciation and all those things. It's like, but I am like, I mean, it's not for everyone.
No, it's not. And you got to really judge yourself of like, what are you willing to do? And like you said, that's why I keep going back to what you said about the money in the bank. Does it make you feel okay? Or do you not like having the $30 million debt? Okay, you know you have equity. Maybe that is what helps you sleep at night. Maybe you did buy really good. You have $30 million in debt, but it's like worth $90 million or like $100 million. It's like, okay. Well, then you could go to the bank probably pretty easily and pull out what you wanted to and be okay. Or even pay that off if you wanted to, probably like with what you've got coming in, you know, like from the rents or whatever. So it's like, what are you comfortable with? And I know we keep going back, I know, to stewardship. There's that verse in the Bible. Wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. Like wisdom first. Like, what are you applying what you've learned? Like, and now if you know what to do with your money, are you applying that to your life and to those situations of like, where am I now? Do I have a spouse? Do I have a family? Do I have, you know, these types of things? Well, then I have to take that in consideration, and I can't make it in a silo anymore where it was just me, you know, by myself. I'm 19 years old. Like I'm going out there, I'm grinding, I'm doing everything I can. It's like, wait a second, where are you in that stage of life? You got to take all that in consideration. And that's honestly why I like the profit first system too, because it's like you're putting first things first. In a business, it's the profit, but the profit points to who you are. More money just lets you be more of what you want out of life. So it's like if you have that money there and you're using it for, and you've thought about what you want to use it for that stuff. Like cash out, and then you won't feel bad about it because you know that you've already got a plan. This is why I started this whole dang thing. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. And then it just becomes like, you know, for me, when I use that original example, it's for somebody who's, maybe they got a property or two, but no cash. I'm like, bro, just sell it. Seed the business, and you're going to sleep better. It's going to grow way faster. It'll make you way more than that one property would have appreciated.
I just need you to say that on like every podcast out there. So I feel like the mentality, if you probably feel this way too, just in the space, is like, no, we hold on to things. We just take every deal that comes across. That's why we even talked about it up front. Like, it's a good deal. I'll just do what it takes, and I'll use my money. And like, I just won't sleep at night, but this is too good of a deal to pass up.
Well, I'll just tell you, like, I mean, most people who say those things are not actually very wealthy.
Correct. That's very true. They don't have the true wealth.
Like, I mean, like, I don't say this, I guess, to brag or anything, but like, I'm pretty young and I've done a lot of things. I'm 35 now. And I've had this mentality since I started in business.
Good.
Of like, you know what? I'm trying to like accelerate this, but I'm also trying to live a dope life today.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to grind and save and build one unit at a time.
Right.
And then like life is whatever for 20 years. No, I'm trying to like make money today and live a sick life, give do cool things, and then also have a lot of capital so I can go reinvest. And like my thought process had always been just about velocity.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, if we both have 100,000, but I can cycle it way faster and keep getting it back and getting it back, in the long run, it will outpace anything of just letting money sit and do nothing.
Exactly. And that's where you've unlocked that at an earlier age than a lot of people that walk through our door who have been doing it for the decades.
And I was broke. It just made sense to me. I was like, why would I keep it in a rental for $200 a month? And then I'll get people who are like, bro, do you wish you would have kept that property? I'm like, no.
Right?
Look at the result.
Yep. Oh, man.
Look at the result of people who just sit there and thinking they're doing the right thing and like saving and more power to you if that's the only path you want to go. But if you have the ability to go build a business and get deal flow, that is the wrong path.
I 100% agree. When I started Simple CFO, I had a small portfolio and I sold it back then. It was like 2019 and people were like, do you regret that? I'm like, never, not one day. Do I ever regret that?
Life's infinitely better because I sold it.
Exactly. Because I was able to do the thing that honestly, I feel like I was called to do. Like I'm going out there and I'm like helping people with this exact thing that we're talking about today where they're struggling and they've struggled for decades or years or they're just getting started out and maybe I can help them avoid the decades of hurt that a lot of people go through.
Now, what point do you transition, right? Because I think what we're both talking about is which the majority of people listening to this are, right? Because the main thing I'll get is people like, well, bro, I have, X amount of things. And I'll be like, yeah, you're freaking 50, 70 years old. Of course. Like, good job. But that's like most people aren't there yet. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at what point does it finally start to make sense where I would say you go into more like wealth building mode?
Today.
Okay.
Now, as soon as possible. Like profit first is one of the main accounts is the profit account.
Well, okay, hold on. Let me define wealth building because I think my definitions may be a little different.
Okay.
So the way I think about it is my business is more so active income building.
Sure.
Cash. I'm trying to make cash flow, money coming in and I'm going to go live off of it. And, I can invest it and give it and all those things too. But I guess when I think about wealth building, I'm more so like, at what point does it make sense to do more passive things? Like, hey, I'm going to buy a rental and then just park it. I'm going to go stock market, park it. Bitcoin, park it.
I think we're saying the same thing, though.
Okay.
If you build a business, but you don't have that mentality or you don't even start small with what you have now, you do a deal, a wholesale deal, and you make 20 grand.
Okay.
Can you put 1,000 away into a profit account that you might not touch right now, but you might buy your first rental with?
Okay,
like,
got it.
You're saving today for the wealth building. Like if you're just getting started out, you start today with the good habits, so that way you can pounce on those passive opportunities when they come up. So you're building the wealth mentality now when you don't have a lot of wealth.
Got it.
That's where I bet you didn't start giving once you had a lot of money. You were a giver.
Yeah.
So that way you became just a bigger giver the more money you made.
Yes.
Guess what? Same thing with passive investments. Be a passive investor now in your mind of saying, I might not have a rental property today, but I'm going to save and do the things that wealthy people do in order to buy those things that I know that I want and that's on our, vision board or whatever, the goals that we have as a family or as a business in order to get those things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say though, if you're just starting out, start with the active income, that ATM money. Like you have to start there. You have to start with revenue generation and getting the money in the door. But what you do with that money dictates really how fast you get to the financial freedom or that fun track.
Yeah.
The quicker you can, it's because you have built good habits with your cash flow management.
Yeah. So there's so much that real estate investors and new people and everyone else are probably doing wrong, at least with their books. And even just like right now, we're talking just deep philosophy of how to use money, and how to play the money game.
Right.
Like the way I'm playing the money game is different than how I would say most real estate investors play the money game.
99%.
Even people in masterminds and everything else. And I'm like, you know what? Look, y'all can play it the way you want. I'll keep playing it the way I think. And I just think my path is better. Like, I don't know, right? The result is the result.
Yeah.
So the question is, for somebody who's now trying to play the money game better, right? Like making active income is one thing. That's not where they're going to go to you guys. They'll come here or whoever else if they want to go learn how to market and sell and create active income. But at what point, how much money do you need to be making where it starts to make sense to hire people like you guys?
So we have 2 different types of programs. A recurring one that like you retain the CFO for as long as you need them. That one starts at like if you're making $500K in revenue or top line.
Okay.
That's when it starts to make sense just with the tiers that we have. Then we have like an implementation of Profit First. We call it our 60-day financial foundation program. Like we do those first 3 things and you get that CFO access. And that's like if you're making from 100,000 to 500,000. So we have those 2 different types of programs. So that way, if you're getting started, but you're just getting started and out the door,
you're going to teach them how
something.
to do it themselves.
We're going to teach it how you do it yourself until you want to take that off and you hire a part-time financial leader.
So basically, like you have a one-time expense of, hey, we'll train you for 60 days.
Yeah. Exactly.
How to do
and
Profit
implement
First.
And set up a dashboard and that type of stuff.
We'll give you the tools, all that stuff. And then the next one is, hey, all right.
You need this person on your team.
You're now doing a lot. Let's just do it for you.
Yeah, and manage your day-to-day, and then come to you and talk about the strategy of the finance.
So where do people go to get all that?
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, I'll send them to a place where they can get the book too. Ebook, audiobook, simplecfo.com/RP. So if they go there for Ryan Pineda, then they can download the book, audiobook, ebook. I give a Profit First cheat sheet there too, because I know most entrepreneurs aren't going to read the book. So it's a one page. Like here's the 1, 2, 3 of how to start implementing this yourself.
I'm like, I don't want to read the book.
Exactly.
But the one page will help.
So it's got the one page, and there's a second page is a visual overview of how like Profit First works once you have the bank account set up. So it's not so overwhelming up front. So you go to simplecfo.com/RP.
Sweet. So guys, we'll link to that down below. David, dude, it's been a pleasure. Cash management is not something that's talked about very often. We're also focused on making money and doing more deals and more top line and scale and all this stuff. But I mean, none of it matters if you if you don't make any money,
right?
Or if you are making money and you're still stressed, and you still don't freaking know where it's going.
Exactly, and that's where we have a good friend, another person that in this space. He likes to say, making money is a skill, keeping it is a discipline. And a lot of people just don't have the skill or discipline of keeping it. And it's like, that's really how to unlock the wealth path, like of becoming wealthy. Because like you said, you could become really good at making it, but if you're not good at keeping it or keeping some of it, you're never going to wake up and feel like, oh, this was all worth it. So that's what we want to help with.
I love it. Well, guys, go check that out. We will link to it down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.